Welcome to the channel, y'all. That little intro that we just filmed was on the Fujifilm XS20, and that's what we're going to be reviewing today. So, we currently have the XS20 set up on a tripod up there, and it will be filming us with the eye tracking running and everything, and we're going to go ahead and clip to those videos throughout so you can watch it work. Now, I want to say first and foremost, I've used this camera for weddings, for portrait sessions, for content creation. We've used it at a fair, in all kinds of conditions, even like shooting waterfalls. Not ideal spots for it because it's not weather sealed, but this camera has exceeded my expectations in pretty much every way. Reason for that, the quality that comes out of it is phenomenal. Even just with the 18-55 and the Viltrox 13mm, which are the only two lenses that I have that fit the X mount right now. They're sharp, they're contrasty. I've found 4 film simulations that I kind of rotate between. 2 variations of Portra, which is Reggie's Portra and Portra 400 V2. A Superior variation, and I want to say a Cinestill 250 black and white, which is just so good. I'll throw some of those on here at some point throughout this. The camera itself, it's light. Battery lasts a long time for, a Fujifilm, and I'm coming from the XT20. So if that gives you any ideas here, hang tight. Where was I? Oh, so the film simulations. Wonderful things to have, especially like as a person that tries to create all the time and not only turn clients' galleries around fairly quickly, but also, to be able to just take a picture and not have to edit it, that is a very nice thing to have. So, coming from the XT20, here's what we've got upgraded. Big sensor upgrade, X-Trans 5. 26.2 megapixels, 26 effective megapixels, let's say. Huge benefits over top of what the video performance was of that XT20. So we got 6.2K opengate, which is primarily what I use when I'm doing content creation and that kind of stuff. It's real nice to get the full size of the sensor because we can do horizontal video or vertical video. And it gives you a lot more real estate with the content that you're filming. It also does 4K, blah, blah, blah. We'll plug that in here. But the 6.2 opengate is just great, really good picture. You can also film in the film simulations. I've messed with that a little bit. I really thought that's where I was going to lean with this camera, and then F-Log 2 is just so good. The colors out of this camera are great. The profile, the F-Log 2 profile is arguably one of the better log profiles that I've worked with. Now, I do utilize C-Log 3 when we're doing this. If I get into like real low light situations, I'll sometimes push C-Log 1. Haven't had experience with C-Log 2. And I've yet to have any like S-Log Sony experience or whatever Nikon's is, F-Log or anything like that. So these are the only 2 camera systems that I've worked with are the Fujifilm and the Canons. But what I would like to say is the build quality is great on it. It does have kind of a like plasticky feel. It's very light, but the buttons are tactile enough. Like there's no like squishiness to them, and like it doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart in your hands. So let's get into the meat and bones of this review. I've found that the eye tracking is not as good as the Canon. The Sony that I've had in my hands, which is like an A6400 that my buddy owns, had very good eye tracking. I wouldn't say it's as good as, the R5 and the R6, which we shoot on. The R7 I've not had the issues with, but Fujifilm holds up. I've not done any kind of wildlife or anything like that, so I can't comment on it. It's different than the Canon system. So it's similar to the R7 where there's your central box that it works off of, and then it's a multi-point. So if a subject enters your frame, it will pick up on that, and then as it exits, there's a little box that it will focus on whatever's inside of that box, albeit if there's no subject. I don't like it, but it's probably just because I'm not used to it. It functions well. So, let's talk about the image quality. Image quality, as I commented on before, it's very contrasty, very punchy. With the correct film simulations, it's beautiful straight out of camera. The raw files, again, not as good as a full frame camera. You can't expect too much from this APS-C size camera. It does function fairly well. I've pushed it to about 3200, maybe 4000 ISO, and the image does start to fall apart at right around that mark. If you're shooting black and white and it's a lighter built recipe, it handles fine. The grain is very palatable, which I like. So even though it does start to induce grain around that like 3200 to 4000 ISO area, it's grain that it's pleasing to the eyes. Video, I've not had to really push in low light yet. So mostly the sessions that I've done have been with photo. I've used it some in video situations that are low light, and we're going to throw some footage in here from Canfield Fair, which is in Ohio. I really like the images I was able to get there, and that's with like a 10% mist filter and the 18-55 kit lens, which, again, if you're looking for a kit lens and something cheap to get into the Fujifilm system, that is the lens you want. If you're preferring a zoom, Ixnay, all the primes and everything, because there's a lot of really good primes out there, but I wanted like a quick fix, end-all be-all lens that I didn't plan on purchasing anymore, but I like this camera system so much that we've now started collecting Fujifilm lenses as well as all the Canon EF and RF glass. And, there is a adapter, I believe the company is Fringer, that makes a EF to X mount adapter, which is autofocus and everything. That's probably going to be our next purchase because Canon glass is it's good. So battery life. Battery life is much improved over the XT20 and I guess over many of the previous batteries that they were using. So let's see if I can get you in focus here. These are what the current Fujifilm batteries look like. They say, I can't remember the company that does all the certifications and all that stuff with the batteries, but they say like 750 shots. I'm experiencing more than that, but I'm also going to say I'm more thoughtful about the shots that come out of the Fujifilm because I treat it almost like a film camera. So I turn my live view off. I shoot based off of what I see in the viewfinder. And of course, like I check them every once in a while, but for the most part, you can get a good shot out of this without having to do all the digitization protocols where you would check stuff. So I've bought 3 batteries and I can shoot a wedding day with my R5 and the Fujifilm and maybe use 2, if that. And that depends on, if I would be doing video, I'm going to burn through those a lot faster, but just photo, I'm good with just one battery and that running as my second camera. So, let's talk about the media files. So, it takes SD XC2s. So, big upgrade from the standard SD cards. Much faster. My only gripe is it's not dual card slot, but I've never had a card fail on me. Knock on wood. Hoping that never happens. It would be a nice little added reassurance because when I do shoot weddings, I typically dual record just as a redundancy and shoot, one card in RAW and one card in JPEG and try to expose everything properly and, et cetera, et cetera. That's just kind of an added reassurance for me. I've never had to use it. The ports on it are a micro HD MI, which we all know, thank you Canon, that they suck. So I don't have a cage or anything for it. I've not had it fall out on me, but it does feel very loosey-goosey in there. There's also a mic port. Every time I plug a mic in, it pops up this weird message of like, are you sure this is the mic/remote port you want to use? I don't understand what it means. I just click OK every time. Never had any issues with the audio. And then we also have a USB Type-C. Straight out the box, you can use it as webcam, which is nice. Again, Canon, step it up. You shouldn't have to pay $100 a year for a $3,000, $4,000, $2,000 camera to use it as a webcam. But I digress. Fujifilm's doing that right. It's, paywalling a piece of equipment that you already own. Doesn't make sense to me. As for the knobs, dials, blah, blah, blah. The touchscreen, I don't love Fujifilm touchscreens. I think just the responsiveness of the Canons is, probably top of the line in the industry. So the touchscreen on the Fujifilm does leave a little bit to be desired. Not a huge deal. The viewfinder, also very small, but to be expected in this price point and this size of camera. The clicky wheel in the front, which, you know what? Let's just bring it out. We're going to do some camera inception here. So, anyway, back to the task at hand. Clicky wheel in the front. It's got a nice feel to it, not squishy. Clicky wheel in the back, which I have set to, in video mode, it's my aperture, and in photo mode, it is my nothing. Fair enough. Nice buttons right here. So you got your Q button here, ISO button, your mode dial. This is the first camera that I've utilized the custom functions, and I have each of those set to a saved film simulation profile, which is a nice thing to have. The vlog mode is it's vlog mode. I don't use it, so can't comment on it. I just go straight for all-out video. And then this dial right here, we have set to scroll through the different film simulations. So, I don't know if you can see here, that is me watching me. The LCD screen, it's not like super sturdy. It's sturdy enough for, what most people are going to use it for. There's your autofocus on button, and then your auto exposure lock, which I don't even have set to anything. My one complaint about the build of this is I miss having a clicky wheel in the back. This does, from what I've heard, feel nicer than the XS10. I don't have experience to compare that to, but it doesn't feel bad. It's there. It's just a tiny little nub. And then, of course, you have the built-in flash. Believe it or not, this is the first camera with built-in flash that I've used the built-in flash. It comes in handy for weddings and not having to use either an on-camera flash or an off-camera flash. Typically, I'm shooting with a flash on the R5, so it kind of gives a nice variance, especially when I'm shooting weddings, to have pictures that are just the ambience that's happening and all of that fun stuff, and then pictures that are well lit with the flash. And of course, I'm going to use the more professional camera to get those more professional looking pictures. The menus are a little bit weird to me, which, again, I think Canon's menus are just kind of one of the best in the industry. They just make sense. They're easy to navigate. Again, with that scrolly wheel, everything would be a lot easier, but we don't have it. So I'll go ahead and show you these real quick. So they essentially are a top-down menu. I'll plug some of these from the Ninja recording as well. They are essentially a top-down menu. It works. I find myself going back and forth a lot, and it's easy to like navigate and be where you want to. I think it would just be faster and more efficient if they were set up kind of in a different way, but whatever. So there's a lot of cool options on here, like the background defocus, which really just pushes your aperture all the way open. So that's kind of like an auto mode or the vlogging mode type deal. Again, I've not had to use it, but what it does make sense. The I will say this, one feature that I use a lot is the double exposure type deal. So especially in black and whites, so you can get the camera to shoot multiple exposures and then compress that all into one image. And you can get a lot of really cool looking stuff out of that. The white balance bracketing, ISO bracketing, all of that stuff, you can do a lot of bracketed shots. And then here is your high speed 8 frames per second burst. So pretty quick enough for most situations. I don't have any complaints about it. If you go into the electronic shutter, you can push all the way up to 20 frames per second in burst. And then if you go to a crop, which I don't know why you'd ever do that. If you need to shoot faster, just get a faster camera. But if you go to a crop, you can do 30 frames per second. So I've never used that. I probably never will use that. And it is what it is. But all in all, this is probably my favorite camera right now. So, little quirky. There are some things that I think could be improved, but at the price point of $1,200 for a camera that does all of this stuff that it does, especially like the video recording, it does have IBIS, which is super cool to have at a camera at this price point. We're going to die here in a second, so cut.